Thank you, Dr. Mittal. When I mentioned UGC as a regulator, believe me, I did not have anything else in mind. That's the premier institution, but it's a fact that for a long time, after its inception, UGC was never considered as a regulator. It was like considered as a coordinator of the maintainer of the standard, of the promotion of higher education. It was only this term of regulation of higher education first time perhaps came into popular vocabulary with the submission of the National Knowledge Commission reports, over-regulated, under-governed kind of things. And thank you very much for informing us about the kind of initiatives you have taken. Now, we often say in India that policy is at one place. Institutions and individuals somehow find some ways to do whatever they want to do. And therefore, the role of the institution and the role of the leaders come into play. In fact, we recently organized one consultation meet on internationalization, and we were thinking that where we should organize. And the Pune came the first destination in mind because perhaps the largest number of international students and also the faculty exchange, etc., are there in Pune. So they must be having something. Luckily, we have Dr. Vidya Yiravdekar, who heads Symbiosis University and rather group of institutions. They have been quite proactive in the short-term exchanges, in the student mobility, and personally she has been very keenly interested in studying internationalization. So both from the study point of view and also from the case study of the Symbiosis University, the only constraint is that of time.
Yes, I'll certainly stick to my time. Thank you very much. Actually, Symbiosis is a deemed university, so we work sans the regulators and whatever they provide to all the public institutions. So Pankaj ji is a dear friend of mine, but whatever Gyan and all the funding goes to the central and all the public state universities. So we have to find our space within, and how do you fund yourself and still improve on what you were earlier. So we looked at faculty and student mobility, and I felt that both faculty and student mobility has to be looked in the perspective of internationalization. As regards faculty, whenever we sit for recruitments, okay, you sit on a selection committee and you have lovely biodatas in front of you, and you really hope that someone who has excellent research and obviously a PhD, NET and all the minimum qualifications that UGC prescribes would just walk into the room and you will say, oh, I've got someone really good. But many of my friends here would agree that it's not the story. Someone who walks in front of you with a very thick biodata may not fit into your definition of a good teacher. And definitely not in the definition of a student, because a student believes that a good teacher is someone who is an excellent orator, who can deliver in class, whatever is there in the industry. So application-based knowledge is what the student expects. What UGC and other regulators expect is the minimum qualifications. What the university expects is that yes, the person should be a good teacher, a good researcher with good publications. So this is a huge dichotomy. So every time when we we interview, we say, I wish the UGC kind of mellowed down the requirements a little bit. Can a university have that autonomy to take in faculty who are not UGC qualified, very good industry people wanting to really dying to teach in a class, and students will be happy to have such faculty. So, but when we are assessed or reviewed, the number of PhDs are counted, or the number of NET qualified people are counted, and those who are good teachers don't even, we have to keep them away from, the data that we submit to the regulators. So in this whole bargain, what do you do? And we, as a university, have been doing innovative things. So what we did was to first set up a teaching learning resource center. And the teaching learning resource center necessarily takes care of faculty development. Now, it's faculty development means not just conducting faculty development programs, but really hand-holding faculty. So if someone comes from the industry, You have to tell that person that now that you are in the academic fraternity with us, you will have to ensure that you qualify as per the requirements of the regulators. So handhold him to give NET, to complete his PhD in the next 2 years or 3 years. So that's one part. The Teaching Learning Resource Center obviously does faculty development programs, and we prescribe that every faculty in Symbiosis has to undergo at least 5 faculty development programs in a year. Now, some of them would be generic programs, some of them very, obviously specific programs to his or her subject. The other role of the Teaching Learning Resource Center is that recently we've done is that we've started a program called Master's Program in Higher Education Andragogy. Now, no such master's program is listed in section 22 of the UGC Act, so it's kind of a diploma, but it's for in-service teachers, because again, someone who's qualified, someone has a good research background, cannot deliver in class. So actually it's an art of teaching that you need to kind of train the person, or help him in research. So we've formulated this 1-year program where every teacher in Symbiosis will undergo this. It's on weekends, or sometimes in the evenings, to suit the teacher's requirements. And by the end of 1 year, we believe that they will be good teachers and good researchers. Now, we've just started this. It's like a pilot project. So we felt that let us pick out so we told our directors or heads of departments of different institutions that you pick up teachers who are not so good. Not the best ones, because we will not see any change. Not the very bad ones, because we don't want to keep them. So the ones who are not so good, give them to us, give them to the university. We'll roll out this program for them. So there are about 20 such teachers in the first batch that we're doing this pilot project, and within the next few months we will be able to see the difference, and obviously students will be able to see the difference. So then what we've done is, how do you ensure that faculty publishes? More than publishing, how do you ensure that faculty brings this innovative knowledge in the classroom? So how do you ensure faculty does research? Now, people who come from the industry are clueless of this. So we've set up a Symbiosis Center for Research and Innovation, in which we've appointed research mentors who will handhold faculty. Many of these research mentors, some of them of course, are also come from our international partner universities. Then we give funding for, so we, like UGC rolls out funding for minor research projects and major research projects, we have a system of funding faculty. We also try and facilitate joint research by faculty, interdisciplinary research by faculty. Earlier it used to be in silos, so a management person would never look at a humanities, would never look at, a law person and so on. Now we've got people together, and we say that if your research proposal is interdisciplinary, then the university will want to fund it. We ensure that there is the workload, the teaching workload is reduced for good researchers, and we also facilitate joint research through our international collaborators. So necessarily when a foreign university wants to partner with us, and when we sign the MOU, one of our first appeals to this university is that please help us and help our faculty to do joint research programs. We have a very robust Symbiosis Center for International Education, or our international office, which has these faculty programs, wherein we've devised something called as a scholar in residence. So to attract foreign faculty, we have this program, which is a 3 months or a 4 months program for whatever time a foreign faculty can come in. We give them a stipend, we give them housing, we give them an office space, and we tell them that you not only teach but do research with our, look at research proposals, joint research proposals with our faculty. Obviously, like other universities, we have dedicated funding to for our faculty to attend international conferences. We promote faculty exchange. So even if it is at the cost of, heads of departments telling us that, no, we cannot release this faculty, we believe that when faculty travels overseas, they will definitely improve both in teaching and research. When it comes to student mobility, already statistics have been given. 4.5 lakh students are mobile, out of which hardly 31,000 in India. The worst is that, unfortunately, Indian government doesn't, none of the regulators really have data on student mobility or even on the number of international students in India. So sorry to say this, sir, but if you ask AIU or you ask UGC, you will get different data. If you ask the Home Ministry, I did that once. I said, you know, there would be at least the Home Ministry which stamps the visas of students, foreign students who enter and exit India. So we spoke to the Home Ministry. The data that comes out from Home Ministry is huge. It's almost 3 times of, ma'am, what you're saying. So we don't know how many international students really study in India, leave alone how many who are mobile. You know, when you talk about student mobility, it's for short-term programs. But nevertheless, as a university, what we did is to attract students. We already have students from 85 different countries, but these come for degree programs. Now, to attract students from the rest part of the world, which is the developed countries, whether it's Europe or US or Singapore, we've designed a Study India program, and they come in for 4 weeks, and now the numbers are increasing. We felt that why are students going to China and they're not coming to India? So as Pankaj just said, that there are a lot of other factors than the Indian academic ecosystem. It's housing, it's your visas, it's you know, buddy systems, several things that China really does that India doesn't do. So we felt that as a university, let us study what China does, and as a university, can we do those things? And therefore, we've set up the Study India program. Now, as much as we want to get foreign students in through the Study India program, we also want our Indian students to go out. So we've designed something called as a global immersion program. We want our students to be globally immersed, because we believe that when our Indian students you know, cross India and go to a foreign country, there's much more learning than just learning in classrooms. And therefore, this global immersion program is a funded program where the university actually funds students to travel abroad. So like we've learned from, I think Mr. Podovil will speak about DAD and Passage to India, like the German government has a funding. So recently we've just come up with a proposal that will be hopefully passed in the Board of Management, that can we allocate about 600 euros or 650 euros like the German government gives to every student, so that he can, about 10 students in a year per department, so that the student can actually travel abroad, because it's only the rich students who can then be mobile and not the ones who are the best. So a lot of innovative things, sir, I'm done, yes. So a lot of innovative things that we've done at both student and faculty level. We hope that, you know, the Indian government and specifically UGC looks at the whole system, the higher education system, through one lens, and not really look at funding to a certain class and not to the others, so that you know, more and more universities can then take benefit of the funding, and more faculty and students can be mobile. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya. Yes, indeed. I mean, one thing, we do not have a definition that what do we call as international students and about whom should we capture data. But then out of these 3 sources, the All India Survey, the AIU and the UGC, I think this number of 31,000 to 33,000, they essentially reflect those students who are of not Indian nationality and who are pursuing a full-time regular program. Home Ministry data, I think, also includes large number of people visiting on the short term, etc. But I think I was really impressed by one thing that you mentioned about the how to develop faculty from the industry. In fact, I was part of the committee of the UGC on prescribing qualifications for teacher prior to this pay commission. But then those things were taken from that committee reports into the pay commission report. And there were people from the management discipline in particular, they said that insistence on the PhD, etc. For professors in management is not required. I think we should focus more on industry experience. So that became part of the qualification, and then after that I became Vice Chancellor myself. And also started holding selection committees, and there were a large number of people who were applying from the industry. And the real challenge was that how do I know that the person has simply not just burnt out in the industry and wanting an easy career path. And therefore, when we tried to find out that what is it whereby you could claim that you also have academic interest. And everybody who joined industry completed 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. You have also done so. You did your job in the industry. But how do you show that you are also academically inclined? And then I started sharing with my fellow Vice Chancellor. I think all universities and all deans had a similar kind of problems. So anyway, taking them for some case study sharing, discussions was fine, but as a full-time faculty was a major issue. But you have found some kind of a solution that take them and develop. Now we have the last speaker of the day, and at that time we had a major concern because he was saying that, look, being a last speaker means that I'll get the least time. At that time I did not mention, but now I want to mention that in the old Urdu poetic tradition, it is the master poet who is invited at the end. So we have given you this designation, and I assure you that you will get your full 5 minutes. So Professor Ulrich Podewils.
Sorry, but now I understand why you explained when we met first that you would like to have the last word and not me. I'm very brief, and I would like to share some remarks, but these remarks are out of my own experience only. We all know students worldwide are on the move, more than 4 million students, and out of these numbers, 200, some say 300,000 are from India. But as being from Germany, you don't mind that I have a look to the situation in my country. 2009, 2010, that was the academic year, 2009-10, there were more than 240,000 foreign students enrolled at German universities. Only 4 years later, the last academic year, almost more than 320,000. And the goal is of the government and the universities to have more than 350,000 students in 2020. You should ask why. That could be discussed later. The largest group of the international students at our institutions is still from China, approximately 30,000, sorry. And why, I will come to this point a little bit later. But to my own surprise, because I'm lived in India for 9 years from 2003 onwards, and there was always a very small number of Indian students studying in Germany. But to our surprise, in 2014, 2015, the students from India formed the second largest group of almost 12,000 students, the second largest among the foreign students. In 2008-9, there were 3,500, doubled 4 years later, and within 2 years later, doubled almost again. Why do they wish to stay in Germany? That could be discussed, and I will give some reasons later. But these are numbers only. I think it's more interesting to learn at what kind of institution these students are enrolled, from India and from China as well, and in which subject fields. Of course, more than 50%, that is not a surprise, are enrolled in engineering sciences, both Indians and Chinese, followed by IT, mathematics, and natural science, more than 30%. So 80% are in MINT subjects. The others are some in economics, medicine, languages, but very small numbers only. And their preferred universities are, of course, technical universities. I was surprised when I looked through the list that not only the best technical universities in Germany were selected, even minor ones. I'm not in Germany, so I can say this. But I believe that has something to do with Indian culture, for instance. Someone is there, then he's whispering to another one. It's not bad to study there. And so even the not so good universities can enroll and engage students from India in this case. The situation with the Chinese students is more or less the same. Both groups preferred subjects are engineering, nature, and their preferred universities are technical universities and universities of applied sciences. And why do they go abroad? A report of the Berlin Carter Institute for China Studies just recently presented results of a survey, and I would say a survey among Indian students would present similar results. First of all, the Chinese/Indian parents are not satisfied with the quality of teaching and training at their respective institutions of higher education at home. That was the most important reason to go abroad. Then, why to Germany? That's the costs. In Germany, you don't pay tuition fees. That is very important. Living expenses as well are comparatively low. For instance, now I quote this study. It's not my own suggestion. 6 years of study in Germany as a bachelor and master, 6 years in total. It costs you around 50,000 euros only. At Iowa State University, it's 9 times as much. And it doesn't matter in Germany if you are at the very good, at the best, and maybe at the not so good university. Then there is a German image in technology that is important to select or to decide for Germany. And an increasing number of courses are offered with English as medium of instruction. And this is only a curiosity in my mind. For the Chinese students and parents, it was extremely important to select a German university because Germany won the last world championship in soccer. It is not an academic issue, I think, but nevertheless, they decided for this. Then they were asked as well, do you think about to continue your professional life in Germany as well? 50% of the Chinese students were thinking about it, but only a very small number then decided at the end of their study course to stay and to continue in Germany. That is different with Indian students. But not so many Indian students go directly into the corporate sector. The best and the brilliant Indian students, and there are a lot, they continue to do research at, for instance, at the Max Planck Institute or do their PhD at a university, most of them. So as a result, the students from India and from China, they go abroad to improve their chances in their professional life. That is different with German, let's say, West European students. If they go abroad, only, first of all, for a limited time, for 1 or 2 semesters only. For instance, 30% of the students of my university go out for this limited time. The aim is to improve their intercultural and language skills. That is important. And then a large number of them participate in double or joint degree programs offered by my universities and universities abroad. In most of the cases, European universities. And they are supported by a European program called Erasmus, not Erasmus Mundus, Erasmus only, that is for traveling and staying in Europe. And, for instance, in the case of India, it was already mentioned by Vidya, by a program called New Passage to India, which comes to an end actually within the next month, but will be followed by a different program. The conclusion is there are disparities between students from Asia and from students from Europe. The Asian students look for complete education to start with a profession after they have finished. For the European students, to go abroad is only part of their educational course. Now let me allow to do some remarks on faculty mobility. There are needs, of course, for more professors, for more teachers, especially in India and in other countries as well. In the case of Germany, we are looking for more researchers with international experience, not so much for professors, researchers in general. Of course, each country follows its own policy to cover their specific demands. We just heard about the UGC policies. An example from the point of view of my university, the Chinese launched a scholarship scheme for graduates to do their PhD abroad at one of worldwide selected universities. 30 universities are selected. One is Free University Berlin, with the obligation to teach for a limited time at a university in China after their return to China. We as a university are interested as well to have more foreign professors or teachers, only 10%, but that is not because there is a lack of professors. With international or global teachers, we would like to increase our international or global education, a global aspect of education within the universities. Let me come back to the German point of view. I already mentioned that we are interested to have more researchers from abroad. A large number of German postdocs do their research abroad, more in natural science, more or less everyone, especially in the US. And there are 3 major programs to attract the best to come back. One is the so-called Humboldt Professorship, offered by the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation. The university themselves, they have to apply to get a good brain from abroad to come to their institution. And only 6 to 8 are selected every year. But these brains get up to 4 million euros to do research in the institution. Half of these 6 to 8 are Germans, the others are foreigners. The second example, more interesting, is GAIN, German Academic International Network. It was formed in North America, in the US, and in Canada. It's more or less a network for information about possibilities to continue in Germany, about open positions in Germany through annual meetings, newsletters, local round tables, and so on. And the last scheme is DAD and the German Research Foundation. They offer scholarships up to 6 months for those who return to Germany. It's and for their transportation and accommodation as well for the first 6 months, if they like to find a position within a German university or a German research institutes. So if I may sum up again, the Indian and Chinese students, they go abroad and they look for a professional degree. The students from Germany and from other Western countries, they go abroad for a limited time only. It is in most cases part of their national curriculum. And for an increasing number of faculty members, China supports financially the best students to get a PhD degree at a foreign university and continue as a teacher at a Chinese university. And the Germans recruit foreign academics or offer support to return in order to get the best researchers and globalize their universities as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Podvels. In fact, I am not surprised that the number of Indian students are increasing in Germany, and many of them are going to technical schools or Fachhochschulen. For 2-3 reasons, because in our interaction we found was that, of course, one thing that you mentioned, that the comparative cost advantage which Germany offers, both in terms of cost of living and nearly zero tuition fees. But also, many of your Fachhochschulen have been somewhat more active in setting up the ties with Indian universities. They have been visiting India, and Fachhochschulen have been the first one to say that we also teach in English, and we have adopted English as a medium of instruction. So I think these things may have been explaining, but it was excellent perspective that you provided, the reasons for the mobility. Ladies and gentlemen, it's just 2:45. We have completed 1 hour. We have all promised that we will be speaking for 5 minutes, but each one of us ended on an average is speaking for 10 minutes. So that's 60 minutes over. Now we have a choice to make. If we open the floor for discussion, I think the lunch would be delayed. So Shobha, what would you advise?
One question, please. One question.
One question.
Just
one question
question.
Here, right side, right, left side, here, left, left.
No,
Here,
I
sir.
see one mic on. So, okay.
Who? There. Any more?
No,
Here,
no,
yes, sir.
I saw both of them. I'm just wondering.
Sir, two
Okay,
questions
let
there.
us take these two questions as last question.
Yeah.
And if they are in the form of comment, so none of us would respond. But if there are specific questions, then perhaps yes.
Yeah, shall I? Thank you. This is to Dr. Pankaj Mittal. It's about Gyan. It's called as GIAM Gyan. So Gyan should be shared with everybody. 60% of the education in India is financed in the private sector. You can't exempt 100 institutions do not contain private sector institutions. You make a part of them. In the sense, these institutions, whenever they come, these professors, when they come for 1 week or 2 weeks, let there be a conglomerate. Within that institution, let the other institutions, neighboring universities also join them, and let this GYAN be shared with all other institutions also.
Benefit from the Gyan initiative and the funding that is available.
I want to reply from her.
Okay, we'll come.
Yeah, my name is Naveen Piplani and I'm a conservation architect from INTAC. And I'm resonating the issues that have been raised by all the speakers and a commonality between them. And one issue, which I think always gets kind of shoved under the carpet, is the equivalence of foreign degrees, the universities that we get from foreign degrees. And it's quite an irony in my understanding that we always look up to the UK in the academic excellence. And most of our universities want to get affiliation, accreditation and all that from UK universities. And the government of India does not, and AIU and UGC, does not recognize the 1-year master's program from any of the UK degrees, UK institutions. So that is my real concern, that we are discounting so many academics, scholars who are getting trained abroad, and then we are subjected to do, as we all agreed, you know, a 1-year or 2-year master's from a subgrade university in India to get an equivalence or, you know, kind of a, what do you call, a minimum qualification to be. So how are we going to improve the quality of education when you are discounting a critical mass of academics who actually kind of set up the whole modern education system in this country? So that's my concern, my question, my curiosity.
Just a second.
Would you want to note it down as a suggestion?
No, I have already. See, today morning before I came here, there was a meeting of GYAN in the MHRD. And because this issue was raised yesterday also, so I had raised this issue in that meeting, that why not allow private universities also under this GYAN program. And Education Secretary was very kind, and he said that whichever is their next meeting for deciding the policy issues, they will be considering this issue in that meeting. Okay, thank you.
I'll just respond to you because the passion with which you spoke, and I know that many people are suffering, and by not responding to that question would amount to as if AIU is evading that issue. Yes, it's a very, very important issue. Our present framework, and which is not the unique framework in the world, has been that, okay, all qualifications which bear parity in terms of the length or the duration of the program of a study in India would be given equivalence if the degree is taken from a recognized accredited institutions. It is true that UK, some other European countries where master's program is of usually of 1-year duration, very few programs of master's level are of 2-year duration. Since 1-year duration is lesser than the 2-year duration, therefore the parity is not there. And it is not that the country has not been alive to this problem. In fact, this issue was taken up at the highest level between the two governments, United Kingdom and England, and at that UK and India. And at that time, we had a prime minister who himself was educated at Cambridge. So it was not that people were not familiar with the UK system of education who were involved in decision making. And at that time, a decision was taken and was agreed upon that yes, 1 year cannot be equivalent to 2 years, and therefore you do 1-year masters may be required to do some kind of a bridge course in India in order to be equated. Of course, that has not worked out, and the UGC had to frame policies. But just again, we are reflecting continuously. There is a joint working group between India and UK. There's a joint working group between India and Australia. AIU is represented. Usually I personally attend the meetings. We are aware of this issue. We are trying to find out solutions. When we are saying that it is not equivalent, there is no comment on the quality, it is in terms of parameters. Within Europe, I just came from Italy, where the Association of International Universities were meeting, where qualification recognition was a major issue, and Italy was making a presentation, and they were saying that we are faced with a similar issue. So in what they have done about the British qualification is that, okay, if you just want to do PhD based on the masters, okay, fine, you can be taken in, but if you actually want that this masters is actually equivalent to the masters in Italy, sorry, we may not be able to give, so because it's consequential. So globally, we are interested. There is already a committee working under the chairmanship of the UGC. AICT is also represented. AIU Secretary General is represented. Hopefully, we'll soon find some solution to this problem. What that solution would be, I'm not able to comment at this stage, but yes, we are aware and we are working to solve this issue. Gentlemen, I'll not make any concluding remarks. In fact, I've been sharing my minds throughout the discussion. So we are just ending 10 minutes late, but I'm sure it's not too late. So thank you very much for your patient hearing. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, panelists,
and
for
thank
such
you,
an
my
engaging
panelists,
session.
For bearing with me and making time. Thank you.
The panelists for the session, Dr. Vidya Yeravidkar, Symbiosis University, Pune, Professor N.V. Varghese, Director, Center for Policy Research in Higher Education, NUPA, Dr. Pankaj Mittal, Additional Secretary, University Grants Commission, Dr. Ulrich Podwils, Representative to India, Mr. Ratnesh Jha, Managing Director, Cambridge University Press, India. May we request the panelists to kindly come on the dais? It's to kindly be seated for the next session. Have the announcement of winners for the poster presentation later in the day. May I request Professor Kamar to initiate the session? Over to you, sir.
So are all our panels here? May I request Dr. Mittal to please come on stage? She's already here. So may I request the distinguished participants to please take their seats? So let us begin this session. And before we begin our session, our most sincere apologies. First, for starting the session late by almost 35 minutes. And secondly, and most importantly, by holding this session before your lunch. So we are, in fact, literally standing between your food. In fact, the organizers had come up with a proposal suggesting that, okay, if we could slate this session post-lunch, but then two of our panelists have some other meeting starting at 3:15, so that could not be possible. So the only solace that I can draw is that some doctors say that the brain works better when the stomach is empty. So I think this is an important area and topic. And I think we need to focus more with all the power that we can draw from our brains, because this session is about two most important things, essentially, which constitute and define universities. You cannot imagine a university or a higher educational institutions without students and without teachers. And this session is focused on student and teachers. This session is also focused on discussing the issue of teachers and students and the quality in the current and contemporary context. And of course, as the title suggested, that this is about mobility, and therefore this session is also situated in the context of internationalization. Without taking much time and without going into the formal introduction of the panelists, I would only want to assure that the organizers have put together a very brilliant panel, excepting me. And I would begin first with Mr. Ratnesh Jha, who heads the Cambridge University Press, but has been focusing his attention on the issue of what are the challenges before India as far as higher education is concerned. So I think his presentation would be on providing us the context in which the rest of the discussion would fall place. Since our time has been reduced now from 1.5 hours to just 1 hour, so I think 6 of us, if we could take just 5 minutes each, leaving some 20 minutes for some questions answer, that would be better. So Mr. Ratnesh Jha first.
Thank you very much. Thank you, FICCI. Thank you, Sova. Thank you, all the organizing committee for giving us this opportunity to be here for a vibrant discussion. The topic is very important. What I'm going to do is that you'll have to bear with me for next 3 minutes just to summarize as to what we've heard in the last 2 days, and then directionally setting up the tone. It starts with the macro, what is happening in the world. So, when we talk about macro in terms of economy, US has its bit of challenges in terms of the monetary policy stress. The interest rate has gone down to 0. Europe has a debt challenge. China is actually export going down, devaluation causing stress. It comes down to the same BRIC country discussion. And within the BRIC country, we see the stress which is happening in Brazil, Russia, and China. So it sets the tone for the lot of discussion about the vibrant discussion about the population dividend, which we have. Now, I want to bring up another perspective here, and which really any economist would agree, is that there are 3 factors which is important for any economy to really grow. One is about the labor, the second is about the capital, and the third is about efficient use of labor and capital. Now, important place where we are, that we are surplus of labor, and that's a lot of statistics has been given on that. Yesterday, we've had discussion about that we have an average age about 28 years. By 2020, it will be 29. By then, the other countries such as Japan, China, and US is going to be 40 plus. We also talked about that we are a country of 29 states, 7 union UT, which one state is equivalent to, let's say, Tamil Nadu equivalent to Canada, which Mr. Pai, telling us yesterday. Now, if we have by 2020, 160 million of our youths actually getting into the, in a place where you require employability, and some of the vibrant discussion in the morning was actually about that. And also reflecting back to the vision which we have set up. Yesterday, what I did post the session is I went through the ENY research paper, and why it was important for me to actually go through that is to really to understand that how exactly the capacity creation and the excellence which we are talking is balancing itself. So the first 3 points of that ENY is that how would you actually become a 30 million to a 71 million, a CAGR of 6%? How do you get the GER of 21 to 50? How do you get a 10% employability current to a 90% employability? That's one aspect, which is access, equity, and capacity creation. Then there's a second aspect which we are talking about, which is excellence, is to look at how exactly our university and institution can come in the top ranking from a 7 to 20, or we should be the country within the 5 of the best of the researchers going from. So these are 2 aspects or spectrum we are actually today talking about. So our discussion is a lot of going to be in both the aspect. Within the first aspect, we are looking at intra-state movement of faculty and student, which is very prevalent. We have students going from one state to the other to do engineering and various courses. We have had a discussion in the morning where Pramod suggested that the institution need to be where the faculty is, and therefore a challenge. Now, that's the secondary. Now, in the discussion yesterday, we've had a lot of suggestions. Today in the morning, we saw the World Bank presentation that, our general satisfaction level of the corporates for the students which is getting out are better and better. We still have some challenges on technical side, but softer side skills are getting better. We have suggestion from the secretary yesterday saying there are more and more IITs, IIMs coming through, but that still forms about 2.7% of the total output. We've had Mr. Pai very passionately talking about more autonomy, and which is all agree with. We need more autonomy. We need, if we're really looking in terms of excellence, setting up in the state universities and where the action is, we require more and more autonomy to be there. Now, then the discussion actually went, and I'm going to be wrapping up with these two more quotes, is in terms of Dr. Panigrahi yesterday made that at some point in time we decided to actually get the institution separate than the place where the research is happening. So that's an hindsight realization that we did something which was not right, and how do you correct it? Then you've had Mr. Jhunjhunwala talking about how do you get the translational research, which is very important today. I mean, while I'm from the publishing industry, but both of that goes hand in hand. How do you get the publication research, and how do you get the translation research? And is there a collaboration? Is there a movement which is required, and which sets also the context for our discussion today, that how do you get those collaboration? How do you get the faculties and students actually coming from the best of the places together? With that, what I would like to actually do and ask you a question, the audience here, is to actually portray a set of attributes and ask you to identify who this individual is and how exactly that mobility has really helped this individual do create what he has created. He's a South African, Canadian American. He's done his school in Pretoria in South Africa. 10 years when he started coding, 12 years he created a video which he already went into the market monetizing it. He did his undergrad from Queen's University in Canada. Then he did undergrad again in Pennsylvania, went and did the PhD in applied physics from Stanford. And we've had this gentleman quoted many times in our discussion in the last 2 days. Anybody, any guess? He's nobody but the creator of Tesla, Elon Musk, who's actually a disruptor today. Every discussion really takes, without a Tesla discussion, there is no discussion which is full. So that is one example. The second example, and I'm going to finish faster, I know there's a time constraint. I was in Cambridge about a couple of weeks back, and I met a gentleman called Den. He runs a company called Chegg. So I said, what is this Chegg? Why are you calling it Chegg? He said, there is an Indian gentleman, Ayush, and there was this Pakistani gentleman, Osama. They went to US, and they graduated from US, and then they started looking for the job. And when they were looking for the job, they were asked that, what experience do you have? So without a job, without experience, you don't get a job, and without a job, you don't get an experience. So that was a chicken and egg situation, and we called it Chegg. So that's another example of people going from here, a student moving from here and creating a value disruption, which is a disruption in our space. It's a rental, textbook rental business, which is a listed business in the US. So that's the second example. And the other example which I would like to give is the faculty piece. I went to Northwestern for my postgrad, and when I entered there, typically in the US, you take a bit of time to settle down. And in that place, I was settling down with the number of faculties who actually come in my class, most of them, almost 40% of them in Indian, including the dean at that time and the deputy dean at that time, Indian. So today, when we look at that context in overall sense, there are dean in Cornell, dean in MIT, dean in Harvard, like Nitin, all of these are actually faculty who actually have done their study, some part of the study in this country, and gone and actually creating a larger value. So how do you see, and how exactly you see the mobility of faculty within the context which Pramath has set up, that you need to create institution where the faculty is? These are the people who've gone and created institution and be part of the larger institution there and creating value for them. So I think that's the context which I wanted to set up in terms of, and then there are a lot of detail all of us are going to discuss. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rajneesh, for highlighting the three eternal challenges of expansion, equity, and excellence that we always had and we now had, and also on indicating the possibilities that our higher education offers, and also the last point that you mentioned, that, I mean, you provide the right kind of environment, and the people would be performing to the best of their abilities and create institutions of excellence. Now our second panelist is Professor Varghese, with his experience from the International Institute of Educational Planning, with almost 3 decades of research on higher education related issues, and now in his present position as Director, Center for Policy Research in Higher Education. I think he is the best person to provide us the policy perspective on faculty and student-related issues. So, Professor N.V. Varghese.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you very much for FICCI for giving me this opportunity to speak on this topic. Friends, within 5 minutes, it will be very difficult to give a policy perspective. So what I'll try to do is more to raise some issues pertaining to student mobility and teacher mobility. The first and most important thing that I want to maintain is that if you look at the data, what we find is that international mobility of students have gone up like anything in the last 1.5 decades. This also partly because of the reason that this mobility is now propelled by the market rather than by the state and fellowships, which used to be the case earlier. Now we have around 4.1 million or 4.2 million students, internationally mobile students. And India contributes substantially to the international student mobility. We send around 2 lakhs students, and it means quite a lot of money. And we also find that the number of students coming to India is rather very limited. By any estimate, it is not exceeding more than 35,000, 32, 35,000. So we are more of a sending country. And one of the dimensions is that most of our students, a larger share of our students are going to 3 countries, USA, UK, and Australia. These are things which everybody know. Before skipping this part, I want to make that one statement that when we talk about mobility in higher education or in education in general, there are 4 forms of mobility that takes place under the GATS framework. The programs move, the students move, the teachers move, the institutions move. In all cases, if the programs move from developed countries to the developing countries, students move from developing countries to the developed countries, institutions move from developed countries to the developing countries. But one thing that is unique is that in all 3 forms of mobility, money flows from developing to the developed countries. That is something very important to notice, which is not always recognized, not realized. Even when it is realized, it is not internalized. Now coming to the teachers issue, there are issues related to quantity, there are issues related to quality. Within the time that is available, I'll try to discuss with these 2 issues. One is that there's massive expansion. We never expected that the system will expand so fast and so large, reaching a stage of massification of higher education in India. And this expansion has taken place especially in this century, or the first decade of this century, and at a growth rate of 12.2 to 12.3% per annum, which is very high growth rate when compared with the growth rates in the previous years. And if you talk about the gross enrollment ratios or GER, what one finds is finds is that it is stagnating at a very low level in single digits, but suddenly we find that now we are discussing about whether it is 22% or 23% or 21%, and we are talking about 29 million students or 31 million students or 32 million students, and we have targets for 50 million and 70 million students over a period of time. So the scale at which we talk has dramatically changed. Unfortunately, the teacher recruitment and the teacher appointment has not kept pace. I'm not saying that it has not increased. It has not kept pace with the increase that is taking place in terms of student numbers. Say, for example, between 2000 and 2012, what we find is that the number of teachers increased from 4,000 to 40,000 to around 4 lakhs. And now we have around 1.4 million teachers in the system. When we talk about the teachers, the teacher preparation process that we need to take into account. When we talk about higher education in India, it is mostly undergraduate education. We have what internationally called as a graduate level, or what we call in India as the postgraduate enrollment, is only 11%. With an 11% gross enrollment in the postgraduate level, it is very difficult for us to expect that the adequate number of teachers will be provided by the system the way in which it is progressing today. I'm talking only about the teachers, not quality teachers. That I'll come to it in a moment, just somebody who has completed this level. The more important dimension is that if you look at the universities in India, including state and central universities, it is estimated that 38% of the positions are lying vacant. And if you take the colleges, it is more than 40%. 40% of the teachers are, teacher positions are lying vacant. It is not because qualified teachers are not available. And if you look into the UGC data of NET, we find that a large number of NET qualified people are still remaining unemployed. So there is availability of teachers, but this is a government policy, or the policy that is followed in the different state governments and the universities do not permit to fill up all the positions. So there are two types of shortage. One, the shortage, we are not in a position to produce the total number of teachers which are required. Second, even when they are available, the administrative positions or administrative arrangements or funding possibilities are not permitted to appoint the teachers. So it is maybe easier to deal with the issue of shortages in terms of quantity, but more difficult is that how do we deal with the issue of quality. When we say that our higher education system itself, the quality of higher education system itself is under stress and strain, we do not know. Because we started the NAC accreditation agencies in 1994. Now from 2004-05 onwards, we said there should be internal quality assurance mechanisms which are to be established in the universities. But if you look at the universities which are undergone or which submitted themselves to accreditation, they do not form majority at all. Although now there is a possibility that with the UGC regulations, it may be more and more institutions will be coming. Under that circumstances, it becomes very difficult for us to see that what will be the quality of teachers who will be coming. Second, there is a theory of second rates in education. Not only in India, this is internationally valid. The best students who qualify from the institutions do not join teaching professions. So if you look into that, every generation this happens that the best from the education do not come. So the first generation is taught by the best teachers, but the best students taught by the first grade teachers do not join the system. In the second cycle, the second grade teachers teach the students, and the best students taught by the second grade students do not join the system. I can extend, I don't have the time to expand this policy. So there is a theory of second rates in higher education. And as a result of that, there is a possibility of perennial lack of quality teachers to be provided in the higher education system. Now, what Government of India and UGC has taken a position after the Mehrotra Committee report of 1983 to see that those people who are coming to the system should pass through what is called as a national eligibility test. From 1989 onwards, we have introduced this test, and it is doing very well. And in fact, the number of students or candidates who are appearing for the test is around 7.2 lakhs as per the latest data. And you know what is the pass percentage? The competition is almost like in IAS, not to that extent, national competition. We get single digit only. The pass percentage is single digit only. But it is very difficult to say that the competition is not tough when we see the pass percentages. But at the same time, Dr. Kamar once asked me that, can you make a correlation analysis between those students, those candidates who are passing and their pass percentages in the master's level? And what is surprising to me is that there are 3 papers, and paper 3 is related to the subject area in which the candidate is studying. Not only that the correlation is not very significant, but what is also we notice when we analyze the data more in a detailed fashion, in a disaggregated fashion, we find that a larger share of the students are failing because they fail in the part 3 paper, which is a subject competency. This raises 2 issues, which I want to raise from the policy point of view. If we are talking about improving quality of higher education and improving quality of teachers and teaching force, this raises an issue that how will we try to do that if this is the way that our system is operating and this is the quality of the candidates, or if this is the quality of the students that we produce from the master system. I had 2 more small points that I would like to make, and I'll end. One is that how do we try to improve the situation? I strongly feel that we should not dealing research and teaching. The only way the teachers are forced to read is when they are forced to write. And the moment they stop writing, indirectly it means that they stop reading also. So the way they can be persuaded to read is to make them to write. And if they have to make writing, then we have to link research and teaching. And I also would like to say that one of the elements that we found is that collaborative efforts with the international, whether it is professors or institutions, individual level, institutional level, or at the national level, has contributed substantially to improve the capacity and competencies of the teachers. I was looking at the data. Between 2000 and 2010, there were 51,825 co-publications, co-authored publications between Indian academics and European. This is one part of the collaboration. And most of these publications were in the refereed, peer-refereed, very respected international journals, you know. So what I feel is that apart from talking about higher education improvement alone, we should also focus on reading and writing as one of the basic things for improving quality of the teachers. And this is the way that we'll be able to bridge the gap or fill the shortages in terms of the quality. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Varghese, and particularly I thank you and compliment you for bringing out this perspective that research cannot be separated from teaching, and that is what which makes higher education essentially different from the school education teaching, and where the writing is an important part and where research plays. I'm sure that the higher education regulator in the country is largely aware of the context of the issues and the challenges that are before us. And luckily we have Dr. Pankaj Mittal, who has had almost 30 years in the University Grants Commission. Presently she is Additional Secretary at the University Grants Commission, but more than that, she also was Vice Chancellor of BPS Women University, not only for 1 term, but for 2 terms. So not only that she is aware of the policy, regulatory constraints and some of the initiative, but she can also relate it with what happens at the grassroots level. So now it's time to listen to Dr. Mittal.
Thank you, Professor Furqan. A very good afternoon to all of you. Nowadays, when you say no, it looks like as if you are abusing. So coming to the presentation, I'll just speak for 5 minutes. First, some statistics. Some Professor Varghese has already spoken. If you talk of international students in various countries, I was collecting some statistics. I saw that in USA it is around 8.8 lakhs, that 0.8 million, which constitutes around 4%. UK it was around 0.48 million, which was around 19%. China 0.36 million, which is around 1%. Like this, in most of the countries, it was ranging from 3 to say even 20% international students. And when you see the data of India, it is merely 33,000 students, 33,000 international students in India, which constitutes 0.01%. Similarly, if you come to international faculty, yesterday we had a presentation from Professor Su, who was saying that the Postec University has an international faculty of about 15% is international faculty. Singapore was having around 10 to 15%. Many of the US universities are having around between 10 to 30% of international faculty. But if we talk of Indian universities, I think it will be 0.000001%. Because, why? I mean, then I was also thinking, what are the reasons for this? Why is, what is the reason for having such a low percentage both at the student level and much, much lower at the faculty level? At the faculty level, if we think of, first reason is the rules for appointing the faculty. Most of the universities, especially if you talk of the public universities, most of the acts of the universities do not even provide for appointing an international faculty. And then there are government rules, like I was wanting to appoint one international faculty in my university. I was asked to give a certificate that the total number of international faculty in the country does not exceed 1%. Give this certificate. How can I give the certificate sitting in that university? So these type of difficulties are there. And then if you, it is of, I was till now talking of international mobility, but even if you talk of mobility within India, thanks to our career advancement scheme, there is no mobility within India also, because everybody who joins as a lecturer has to eventually become a professor, maybe in a period of 15 to 20 years. So that mobility is restricted because of the career advancement scheme, which we ourselves have formulated for our teachers. And if you talk of student mobility, why international students are not coming to India? Basically, I feel one reason could be the quality of education we are giving. Quality is a major issue which most of us are talking about. And second is infrastructure. The infrastructure we need for the foreign students, the type of hostels we need, the type of classrooms we need, the type of other paraphernalia we need for the international students, that we are not having. Then there is a lot of rigidity in the system. How to, for mobility of the students, whether it is faculty or the students, there is a lot of rigidity. And then one more issue is of funding. Like in my university, again, I keep on coming back to my university, we had many international collaborations in which the students from outside were coming to our university. Like Korea students were coming, USA students were coming, even we were having very good language labs in which we regularly used to have 2 US interns who used to do internship in our labs. And there were also cultural exchanges, but reciprocal was not possible because those students were funding for themselves. Our students were poor. It was a rural women university. Our students were poor and they could not fund for these type of exchanges. So we were happy with getting them but not sending them, because university didn't have any funds, students did not have any funds. So funding is also one of the crucial issues which is restricting the mobility of students as well as the faculty. Now, as a regulator, I come to what UGC is doing to promote the mobility, both for the students as well as the faculty. For students, as you all know, there is a popular that CBCS scheme, credit-based, choice-based credit system, in which we are ensuring that the student can do one program, say one course from this university, second from some other university, and the credits will be counted. But till now it was not possible, and even with the introduction of this, it will take time for this to be implemented in proper shape. So that CBCS we are trying to do, let us see how much we succeed. But CBCS is one initiative. Then if you talk of quality, especially at the postgraduate level, we are initiating a scheme of, this is an MHRD project of EPG Pathshala. In EPG Pathshala, we have identified 77 subjects in which NET is conducted. For all those subjects, we are preparing the courseware in 4 quadrants. 4 quadrants means e-text, video lecture, assessment, and further reading. In these 4 quadrants, we are making the e-text for each and every subject, each and every paper. That means around, if there is a say in MA English, if we have to make the program, MA English will typically have something like 16 papers, and each 16 paper will have around 40 hours of teaching. So 16 into 40, that is 640 hours of lectures we are preparing for every subject. Like this for 77 subjects, and maybe we are going to increase it. And then there are lot many fellowships for student exchange within the country and outside the country. Now, if we talk of faculty mobility, recently a very good initiative, Education Secretary also referred to it in brief yesterday. This is GYAN, that is Global Initiative for Academic Network. In that initiative, we are inviting foreign faculty to Indian universities. So far, we have selected something like 100 institutions, including IITs, IIMs, state universities, central universities, around 100 institutions. They can call the foreign faculty for 1 week or 2 weeks, and the MHRD or the UGC will be paying around $8,000 for 1 week and $12,000 for 2 weeks program. And then they will also indulge in curriculum making or sort of discussions on curriculums, research, teaching courses, and those courses are open to the host institution students as well as the outside students. Then we also have a scheme called, under basic scientific research, we had a scheme called Operation Faculty Recharge. In Operation Faculty Recharge, UGC selected assistant professors, associate professors, and professors centrally, very good, and even the ones who came from foreign countries, and then they are going to different universities from UGC's pedestal. So that is one very good scheme. Apart from that, we have visiting fellows and adjunct professorship scheme, in which the people from the industry can come and join the universities as professors for a brief period. They can be consultants also, they can be teaching professors also, and they can be for research purposes also. Apart from that, since last year, we have been starting many academic exchange programs, joint research projects are there, and then of course we give travel grant to our teachers for presenting the papers abroad. So those type of schemes are there whereby UGC is trying to promote mobility of teachers as well as students. But with all these things in place, this is the scenario, the statistics which I gave, that is there. So we have to think of many more ways of how to promote faculty as well as the student mobility. Thank you.